If you were to make a game with a controllable main character, then your game development begins with the main character. How he moves, how he controls, what he does, and how he looks. I've gone through 3 iterations of character design before I landed on what I am satisfied with. The process of that will be the talking point today. Designing, modeling, animating, and programming everything to kick the main character into gear. This is the 3rd and final iteration of the character design. I didn't grab any footage from drawing the concept this time, but instead let's look at the reference board. I'm going for a roughly flintlock colonial Wild West era. I've grabbed a bunch of references of pirates, highwaymen, there's some Bloodborne, this guy is from Dark Souls 3, this is Hugh Jackman, the code that is open in the front came from the Darkest Dungeon's Grave Robber character, the head came from this kinda like explorer type guy aesthetic, but like not entirely. The mask and the chest armor piece came from this asshole from Dark Souls 3. Also notice how From Software artists have this tendency to put engravings just fucking everywhere. You pinch this here, that there, and then suddenly you'll have a character Frankenstein made out of a bunch of references. Or, how I like to call it, an original design. For the 3rd iteration I have just sat down and drew the concept without any second thoughts about how I'm going to represent it in 3D. I didn't think ahead and just went with the drawing I would have done as a warm-up. It turned out fine. Kinda rough, but fine. I load this bastard into Blender and I start building. Earlier I was building a character's rough shape out of low poly blocks. This time I use spheres to construct this approximate puppet man. Surprisingly, this is actually faster and allows me to see and feel the proportions much better. I rely on a thing called proportional editing in Blender to quickly morph shapes back and forth until they feel just right. For the 1st iteration I went with 4-sided legs, for the 2nd with the 6-sided legs. Now I choose 5-sided legs. It feels right, you know? I can't really put into words why. This idea came to me after Bone Blaster project, where I also used 5-sided cylinders. I think it gives the shape enough asymmetry to pass for an organic object from any viewing angle. I try to keep my poly count as low as possible while retaining any details of the design I deem valuable enough to represent with geometry. The chest armor piece could be represented like this, but if I make it like this, it will flow better, and let me add the color ridge. The rest of the torso I model around the armor shape. Pauldron is more rounded and form-fitting than previous iterations. It is now less of a mechanical piece and more like an armor piece. I need the arm to not clip into the opening hole over here. Adding the familiar head, the scarf collar thingy, and the mask. Add some hairs to stick out from under the head. I've tried different versions of the arm topology. In the end, I went with the 5-sided arm that morphs into a 4-sided forearm, where it narrows down into a wrist. It kinda makes sense, so the wider the shape, the more sides your cylinder should have. Yeah, that makes sense. I'm setting up the armature early to let it dictate how my edges will land to provide good deformations. Having some second thoughts on the placement of the shoulder girdle. Weapon bones are a must. You should never skip adding weapon bones. 1 bone for the hair, because I'm still not dealing with physics or cloth simulations. No thank you. For the coat skirt I add a simple 2-bone chain. I don't need any more bones, as you will see in the animation stage. This time around I don't deal with automatic weight paints at all, and go manual from scratch. There's enough bizarre shit going around already. Like this. Is it this one? No. This one? Oh yeah, this happens because I've literally copied the fist from the previous model, and the vertex groups carried over. Oh, silly me. It is still surprising to me how much complexity you can get from proper weight painting alone, even when you have only 1 or 2 bones to work with. Weight painting the pistol hand parts without deformations. Just paint it all red. How did this even happen? The toes? Really? Jesus. Adding a simple triangular knee pad to the, to the knee. Now I'm gonna add an elbow guard to the pistol hand design. Once again moving away from the contraption look and towards the armor piece look. An ideal approach should be somewhere in the middle, so I look for it. I don't have to find it right this instant, though. It would be a good idea to add a separate bone for the elbow guard too, but I think that's a bit too much, so for now I'll just fake the complexity instead with this 2-piece solution. I think that's all for the modeling part for now. Moving on to UV and texturing. This time I UV unwrap much quicker. Unless you're working on an RPG where the same character must wear a lot of different attires, you probably don't have to spend much time on uniformity, on trying to develop a principle or a distribution system for your UVs. What I'm saying is, each character will probably unwrap in a different way. I've made my peace with it by this point. One of the benefits, or curses, of being a one-man band is that you can adjust everything at any stage, so you are never really done with anything. You are never really done modeling, never really done UV unwrapping, never really done texturing. It is always work in progress, always, up until you release the game. Begin the texturing process as soon as possible to lure out any mistakes I've made in previous stages. The longer I work in 3D, the more I move towards this back and forth, jumping around pipeline. At first I went with this UV for the coat because the only place I could get a straight seam was the middle of the back flap, also the front of the coat, but you shouldn't put seams in highly visible places if you can help it. But this won't do. You see, I do need straight seams on either side of the island because I'm not working in Substance Painter or the like, so my symmetries have to stay simple and straight. The thing is, I can retopologize this part a bit and then I can get a straight seam here. Straighten up some parts here and there and shift the island a bit to match with the texture. You can see the texture seam right here, going under the armpit. I can do some back and forth to fix this, but here's the kicker. Try to find the seam now. Yeah, that's right, you can't. You may notice I'm working much quicker and rougher with my brushes now. No time is spent on neat patterns or creases or whatnot. Unlike the previous time, all of the detailing will be irrelevant from the top-down view anyway, but I postpone any serious work on the style and graphical fidelity until I get the basics of my mechanics down. I stumble onto a cool idea by sheer coincidence when I draw a metal ornament on the knee pad. Now I use that as a reference to paint the rest of the metal parts in the same style. Before, I didn't want to put any convoluted ornaments in the armor, rationalizing it as unnecessary time wasters. That is still true. These types of work are called artistic trap or artistic candy or something like that. They are pleasant to draw, pleasant to look at, but are not as much important for the overall look of the design at this point. Well, turns out that they are important. How about that? Sure, I could get a better pattern, but look at it, it works. It really bloody works. That's what I'm talking about. Drawing hairs wasn't all that difficult. You can do it too. Just a bunch of fucking strands. Put the strands in several layers. Put shadows in, and that's it, you're done. How do I deal with my undersaturated colors? I put some goddamn adjustment layers, of course. At last I've managed to put my head straight and make another concept for the gun. Now it looks more like a fancy flintlock pistol. Without a detailed sketch, I allow my 3D design process dictate the concept of the model, rather than vice versa. My idea was to put this cranking mechanism thingy on the side of the gun. It is heavy and it would make make it unbalanced, but maybe that's what the pistol hand is for. A little bit of trivia. In this world that the game is going to be set in, almost nobody uses gunpowder-based guns. Instead, guns have clunky, powerful, winding mechanisms that are operated by magically wound springs. The first gun is one of the tamer models, a placeholder or a sort of a familiar face to act as an onboarding weapon until I figure out designs for the more wild shooting contraptions. Well, anyway, that's my idea for putting the winding mechanism there, but it does kinda look stupid. Well, to hell with it, until I come up with something better. I texture the gun with these sweet metal ornaments, wood for the grip and dark green metal for the heavy duty parts. And we're done with the modeling and texturing. Let's get this ball rolling, moving on to the animations. Quickly import the model into Cascadeur to see where I've made mistakes in weight painting and armature setup. All is well? Good. Let's do some animating. If you recall, the previous time I fussed over trying to make animations look more organic, natural, with lots of additional small movements, and I did that right away. After working on Bone Blaster for a bit, I am of an opinion that even a simple, more robotic looking animation could look surprisingly fine. A quick reminder, I need an 8-directional running system, for which I need to make 6 animations. 3 forward runs and 3 backward runs. Forward and backward movements are not a problem. Problems begin when I get to the sideways runs. Again, because I need hips and legs to be at 90-degree rotation with the shoulder girdle. It is an unnatural position and it causes serious mass deformations here. Cleaning up this mess is hard to describe. I dabbled in stick figure animation back in my school days. That is when I have learned concepts like easing, overshoot and whatever else about animation. I haven't really upgraded my animation skills since then, so I have to rely on my intuition and feelings to get these right. So what I'm doing with these is I take forwards or backwards run animation and then rotate half of the character 90 degrees to get the sideways running animation. Remember, I need him to point forwards at all times. In prior examples, I always did it like this. I took the running back animation and turned everything below the waist 90 degrees to the right or to the left. Now I try the opposite. I turn the whole character 90 degrees to the right or to the left, and then I turn everything above the waist back to forward direction. No, the results are not the same. It's all about relative and additive motions, and this way works much better. Animating secondary details like hair or coat flapping in the wind does wonders to sell the animation. Even if it looks a bit choppy and robotic, it becomes more alive after this. I've learned my lesson, and shooting animation will be localized entirely within the right arm. The motion will not send ripples past the shoulder socket. It is necessary because this gun might shoot up to 10 times per second or more, so big wave animation will not look good here. Actually, I might even need to subdue this motion even further. We'll just have to see about that. I import animations back into Blender. All good? Great. Let's move on to Unity. I'm using the placeholder controller from the previous iteration, so the only thing I need to update is the animator. I check if animations are imported properly, if rotations are correct, the avatar skeleton, etc. and etc. The shooting animation will be in a separate additive layer that plays above the idle/running layer. There we go. Oh crap, wait a minute. There's something wrong with transitions between running animations. There's unexplained jerkiness when the guy goes beyond the 90-degree turn. As you can see, instead of rotating his pelvis, he goes the long way around. Look at it! What a dumbass! That's not how you turn. I couldn't put my finger on it until recently, but it reminds me of this scene from Face Off, where Cage does this completely unnecessary flip in the middle of a gunfight. Well, anyway, this is wrong. Why does it even happen? I thought the animator should take the shortest path to blend between animations. Wait a second. Let's go through a little detour and tidy up this scene a bit, because my eyes can't look at this green pattern anymore, I'm sorry. Even though I think it's a crime what Blizzard did to Diablo aesthetic when they moved on from Diablo 2 towards Diablo 3, it still has a lot of stuff I could learn from in terms of hand-painted textures and low-poly solutions. I reference Diablo 3 here and there for some tidbits. Right now I don't need more than some placeholder dirt and grass textures for the start, just so that it's not horrible to look at. Using default Unity terrain for the ground, and that's it for now. Alright, let's get back to the blending. I don't get why the animation blends don't work. I remember clearly that they did, that I solved this problem. Maybe I did something else too, but what? What did I do? It can't be the another blend tree between blend trees. That approach creates other problems. Transition parameters shouldn't affect this either. I just don't get it. Why is he rotating the long way? What if I add a backwards movement to the forward runs and forwards movement to the backward runs and... Wait, hold on, what is this? Freeform directional blend should have one motion at position 0, 0 to avoid discontinuities. Let us never speak of this again. There are some things I've missed or didn't bother to fix before. I'm gonna do them now. Hold on. One thing I often forget is adjusting the model for backface culling. You see, the easier route to take is to let Unity draw each mesh from both sides, but that's a waste of GPU power. I don't need the engine to draw the insides of the arm, for example, so the computational power spent on drawing it is wasted for no reason. However, there are meshes which we normally see from the back, like hairs or the inner side of the coat skirt. What I do is I turn backface culling both in scene view and material properties. This is important because Blender keeps these two in completely different places. I duplicate which meshes I need to view from the inside and color them differently on my texture map. For example, you see the coat will be darker from the insides, so will the pauldron. I don't need as much detailing for their inner mesh, so I reserve a very small piece of space on the UV map for them. Upon loading into Unity, I get this warning from the FBX importer. Some vertices haven't been assigned to any bones. That's not good. What does it mean? I'ma go look in Blender. These are the bastards I need to find. Oh, 309. That's one of them. What the hell? What? How did he get here? Fuck off. Blender can automatically clean up loose geometry with mesh cleanup delete loose. It found 9 points. Didn't Unity find less? Shit. Did he delete something extra? I hope not. Hey, it still says there's 1 point left. Alright, let's go back. 482, eh? Oh, it's right there. Jesus. Wow. I just forgot to paint over this one during weight painting. How about that? Alright, this should be it. And it is. We're golden. Another pet peeve of mine is clipping off meshes during animation. I'd tried to avoid it, but I've missed a few spots, like pauldron here in idle animation. Yeah, it looks disgusting. Fixing it is the matter of literally moving the bone for a few frames in Blender. It's no big. Doing the same for the hair so that it doesn't clip into the scarf. Load it up. Yep, it's good. If you look closely, there is more clipping across different running animations. Listen, I only need to deal with the worst cases. Everything else is tolerable, so I leave it as is for now. Oh damn, wait. I'm done. Well folks, this is all you need to kick off your game development, starting with the main character. The design, the textured model, animations for this model, animator controller, and movement controller. How long did it take again? Oh god. Oh well, at least I'm satisfied with the result. Let's review. I started with an aim for chunky Warcraft 3 models. It would have been a good idea to try, but when I did it, it did not turn out right. Then I went with a more detailed design. It looked much better and everything should have been fine, but it did not click together. In retrospect, I think I don't like the proportions, the forms, the animations, and some parts of the design like the closed skirt rub me the wrong way. Now I went with a more slender figure, with proportions that are a bit closer to reality. The forms are sharper, the design is slicker. I'm not too invested in the color scheme, so I may change it around later. Although I don't see anything wrong with it for now. Alright, who's next on the chopping block? I need to implement proper shooting mechanics with modifiers. I need enemies and AI. I need UI and inventory systems. I need a game loop and progression. When all of that is done, I'll have a prototype on my hands. I guess I'll start with the shooting. See you next time. If I'm being completely honest, I think this is too many bullets, guys.